I'm dying. I think I'd like to keep you around for a little
Right.
bit
You think the
longer.
breath work will add years to my life?
Well, I think it's a kind of lifestyle, like start taking cold showers, wear less clothing,
Uh-huh. You want me to
breathe.
like wear shirts that are like organic cotton?
Well, the clothes that we wear, according to Mr. Wim Hof,
Yes.
actually block the skin, and the consequences are the blood flow is less strong, so it has an impact on the cardiovascular.
You're totally into the Wim Hof lately.
You know what?
So if anyone out there has connection to Wim Hof,
we want to have him on the show.
Bambos wants to have him on the show. I'd love to have him on the show, but Bambos really wants to have him on the show. Wim Hof, if you're out there, we want you, okay?
So today
we've got Della Barbato.
Barbato.
Della
Barbato.
Della and I have the same publisher, Kohler Books, and
Is that how you met her?
That's how I met her.
Beautiful.
I went through Kohler, and I sort of culled through a lot of the books that were out, and I said, who in the books would really interest me to have a conversation with? And Della was one of those people. And I said, John, will you do me a favor, make an introduction? And in my criteria was who are the people with stories where it feels like there's a deep shared experience a lot of listeners will have, because in my coaching work through the years, I think it comes to the theme of molestation comes up.
We're on the intro still.
And over again. Oh, thank you. We're going to be on with Della Barbato discussing
uncovering
sexual abuse.
Yes.
On
A Wonderful
Chaos.
Yes.
Thank you, Bambos. We could do thousands of these shows, and I'll screw up the intro every time.
Yeah, but I'm always telling Andy, it's so weird that every week there seems to be a theme, and we haven't even planned for it.
Yeah,
like
there's no planning on a theme. To this week's theme is certainly about sexual abuse, sexual molestation. You know, it's somehow things just sort of fall on certain weeks.
Yeah,
we should make a banner for the week. This week's episodes.
It's not going to work out. The moment you try to control this,
it's like Shark Week.
Work out.
It's Shark Week on Wonderful Chaos. So yeah, as I was saying, I contacted John Kohler, and I asked John to introduce me to Della, and Della and I had contact. And what I love about our show and how we're working is that a lot of people, although they've maybe written their story or they've sort of posted something on Facebook that was a little bit vulnerable, to come on a show and discuss it is another level of intimacy. And what I found and really found beautiful is a lot of people have trusted to take that journey with us.
Yeah.
And
actually they trusted you.
Possibly.
Yeah. Because you're the one that they talked to, right?
Well, we're going to have another episode where your friend's coming on, so they trusted you in that case.
Yeah.
So, and that I found really always very beautiful, because these stories are not easy to live or to relive. And even if you have written a book about it, to be able to be together with people, create the space, allow it to evolve, know that this woman has gone through this horrible experience, but has two men on the other side who probably on some level can't really understand what that would mean to a woman. And yet she allows us to be the one to be there with her. That also it's just incredible. Yeah. So yeah, that sort of led me to say, would you be willing to come on? And she wasn't jumping at this occasion. She was, I always laugh and say, 50% of our guests don't want to be here.
Only 50?
I think more than 50, actually. Yeah. So they come on because the message is bigger than them. And they realize that. They're like, if I can support another person who's been struggling with the same things I've been struggling with, then that's a reason to do it, right? They're certainly not wanting to put themselves out in the world. That's not why they're doing it. Yeah. So in that case, that was why the contact with Della was so beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you how you articulated just now.
What
Well,
specifically?
just two men who actually potentially might not be able to fully know what that feels like.
Yeah. I mean, that's the, Bolalang, who is a beautiful person who always is with us on these journeys. He's always, when he came on the show, when he mentioned, he said, the world is really full of, white privilege. He didn't say this directly, but it was in paraphrasing now.
Yeah.
He's so precise in everything. I already know I fucked it up, but let's just say
He'll correct us in a bit.
But what he said is, and I said, well, where do you see it? And he said, Andy, the fact that we're speaking English right now. So in a way, there's so many things that we take just so for granted because they're so ingrained in how we've done it all this time. We don't really think about that they aren't. They became that way, right? Yeah. So yeah.
Shall we bring her on?
I say we bring her on.
She's Italian.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Very nice to see you.
Very nice to be here.
I'm grateful that you made the space, I would almost say inside of yourself, to join us, because I know it wasn't the thing you said, Andy, let me get on the show next week.
No, we've been working on this for a while. Well, like you said, I feel like this is my calling to help other victims of sexual abuse, which we are survivors. We are all survivors. So to help survivors of sexual abuse.
Like when Andy approached you, Della, what was the thing you had to overcome to yourself to get to a full yes?
Fear. Talking to a lot of people, but I felt like this is a stepping stone to a career that I'm going to have. So I felt very strongly that this was an opportunity from God, really, saying get as much practice as you can. So, I hopefully one day I want to have even my own TV show that's got survivors in my audience, so so it was definitely fear of, oh my gosh, how many people are going to see this, and I'm like opening my heart and soul here and vomiting out all kinds of stuff. So but again, practice.
I have a question about the word survivor, and I don't know why. I've heard people use different terms, and I think I've even recall someone not feeling good about using the word survivor because it somehow implied victimhood, and they didn't necessarily want to feel themselves a victim. So when you say survivor, what does that mean to you?
Going beyond victimhood. We are victims. We have been raped, molested, and that is being a victim. And, surely right after, and for me, for the next 30 years, I was a victim. I was in victimhood. And all the coping mechanisms that went with it, destroying my life. But survivor to me means you're going beyond victimhood. And it's a world of steps to get there. And I feel like I'm going to be going through those steps for the rest of my life. Healing is it's a long-term process.
Yeah.
But to me, survivor means I am willing and determined to get beyond victimhood.
Beautiful.
So, first of all, thank you for being with us. And when you say the last thing you said, I can't remember, but does this mean that you're still healing?
Oh, absolutely. I saw an interview with Sally Field, and she is also a survivor of sexual abuse, and she hit it on the nose. We will be healing the rest of our lives. I really thought healing was going to be, I am a former Algebra 1 teacher, so if you have this equation and you plug in a variable, your solution is a line. And to me, that's the way that I thought. Like I have rape here and then healing here, and look, there's that line, right? It's not. It is not a line at all. It is 3D. It's painful. And the way that one of my described it is a healing spiral. So you're constantly going, I'm better, I feel like shit. I'm better, I feel like shit. I'm better, I feel like shit. But that spiral keeps getting smaller. So in the beginning, you have this big, spiral, but it keeps getting smaller. But I do believe that because I've been trying for so long and I get so frustrated. Why aren't I healed yet? Why aren't I healed yet? When is that variable going to be solving for X? When am I going to get to the number 24 or whatever it is? And I found that, it's there's always going to be some sensitivity, some vulnerability, some pain, some caution, some, there's always going to be this rape has warped my life and into a way that my reactions to situations will always be altered by that rape. But it gets better every single day.
Do you experience that on some days when you're feeling really in your power, it's like really far away, and there's days where maybe you haven't slept enough and you're like, oh, today I really feel the shit? Does it also, I'm saying, do you see a pattern in how it affects you?
Okay, my pattern is on the days I feel like shit, on the days that I can't do much but lay on the couch and watch Netflix. Those days, is there a pattern? No. I mean, so what do you want me to plot all of my, which I can do because I've kept journals. And I want to say this to all of my survivors: keep a journal. Please keep a journal. That is where my books come from. I say books because I'm working on number 2. If I plot, the days between, I feel great, I feel like shit, I feel great, I feel like shit. I haven't seen a pattern. I mean,
but hold on. I'd love to key in on this. The journal, you said any survivor that's listening, what makes the journaling has been so important for you? So what is it about journaling that's helped you in this journey?
So first of all, I journaled as the 15-year-old who was being raped over a period of 3 years. And that's in book number 1, Almost Della. And then
slowly. You were journaling about your rape as it was occurring.
I want to make this clear. My rape was not a violent rape. My rape was from a family friend who was twice my age, who I was completely and totally head over heels in love with, as 15-year-old girls can be. If you can imagine, I just turned 15 when I met this man. And so.
And this man was in his 30s.
He was 29, yes.
29.
So I journaled because I was in pain, because he was also manipulating and grooming my sister. So there was a huge amount of jealousy between both of us. He threw a wedge into our relationship. And so I was writing about the pain of, well, he's kissing me and he's telling me he loves me and I'm his favorite, yet he's doing the same to my sister. So that pain is what I was, journaling about. And, journaling about the love that I felt, just the complete, I mean, you don't know when you're in your first love that first love is different than the rest of the loves that you will feel for the rest of your life. And for me to go through that with him, it's hard to cover the hate, but getting beyond the hate, I truly feel is key, and I'm willing to do that. I'm going all over the place here.
Hey, it's beautiful. When you, we're not following the story. We can jump in and out, but when you're 15 years old, now you jump forward, right? 3 decades later, you're reading the things you wrote then. How long did it take you to go back to that diary, knowing what it would bring up?
So, first thing, I kind of want to set a little bit into this story. One of my defense mechanisms to change the way I feel was drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So I became an alcoholic. And when I had enough, hit bottom, was determined to get alcohol out of my life, sobriety came with a treatment center, which came with a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And that therapist was the one who introduced me to the idea that I was raped. I never thought I was raped.
Wow.
That. And so going back to that journal was something that she said, she warned me, you need to be ready. Don't do it before you're ready. Don't do it in your first year of sobriety. Just stay sober. That's it.
Yeah.
That's your only job in life, is to stay sober. So even when I did read the diary, which I think I did jump the gun. It was before I was a year sober. I was probably a few months sober. It threw me into a whole world of another level of suffering I had never envisioned me going through. And that was the beginning of my healing. Reading that diary. And thank God I had a great therapist. She saved my life. Still be drinking today without her.
When you went back to it, I'm trying to work in my mind, how would you have experienced, could you at that point have seen the little girl with compassion, or was it like a mix of just almost falling back and feeling that was you? Like, how did you experience it when you actually read this thing you'd written so many years before?
Compassion for her, the first thing it did was show me the manipulation and the grooming that he was doing as an outsider. At the same time, being that little girl, knowing what I was feeling when he touched me, it was really, really hard to look at that from the outside. These are my eyes, right? I am the observer, seeing what this man is doing to this little girl, and yet remembering the feelings that I was going through at that time. It was really difficult, and going through day by day, week by week, the grooming that he went, I mean, just calculated, just over several months, years, just keeping at it and keeping at it and keeping at it. It was really difficult not to hate him. And some days I do hate him, but I know that hurts me more than it hurts him. It means that he still has power over my life.
But before having gone back to that journal, were you already, because you said you didn't feel as though you'd been raped, but did you have any contact with this individual, or was that already finished regardless?
No, that was finished. I have not had contact with my abuser in many years.
Yeah. But you didn't identify him as an abuser until that moment.
Correct.
Although
until my therapist told me that I had been raped.
Wow.
That as a 15, 16-year-old girl, my brain was not developed, and I had no resources or tools to tell him no.
Yeah.
And so going through the levels of shame, and shame is the big word here. Going through the levels of, it was really, really difficult to get beyond, the shame that I felt, because of course I felt it was my fault,
Yeah.
Why couldn't I have said no, So,
yeah, because you said in your case, it was manipulation. And so in that weird way, I could even imagine there's a conflict, because as a child, you may have even felt good in the activity, because you're getting the affection, you're getting attention, and then you don't necessarily understand at that moment that it's a manipulation, not only of you but of your sister.
That is correct. So I had no idea it was grooming, which is exactly what it was. And he groomed my mother as well, into being a family friend. And he lived with us for a short period of time, which is when all of this, mostly happened. So looking back on that and seeing him for what he truly is, that's a hard lot to get over.
And with your mother, is she still alive now?
Mm-hmm.
And have you been able to have the conversation with her about this, or how has that evolved in the years?
One of the most courageous things that I did 4 years ago was come out to my mother and my sister about what happened. And that was something that I absolutely needed to do, was to come clean to them. And it was one of the hardest things that I have ever done. Both my sister and my mother, we have my mother and I have a great relationship. My sister and I, a bit rocky, but I have hope for the future. Having that conversation, my mom, I would say she's not a 40, 50, 60-year-old woman. She's almost 80.
Yeah.
I know she feels bad. And, but what she says was, I can't feel guilty forever.
Yeah.
So she's dealing with it.
But did either your sister or your mother have any idea of this before you told them? Were they surprised?
They were.
Wow.
Your sister also.
So there's two different phases. There was the time that he lived with us where he was molesting me and having sex with my sister. And then there was a time when the shit hit the fan. He got kicked out, but my sister was rebellious and followed him and moved in with him and married him and got pregnant. And so at that time, I didn't speak to him for 14 months because I was just so hurt. But at the time that we did speak, because I knew that I wanted my sister in my life.
Yeah.
When I did speak to him, he told me that he wished that our relationship had never ended. He didn't want our relationship to end. And so for another year, the relationship continued. Going farther.
And this is while he was with your sister.
Yes. And that's where the guilt and the shame mostly came from.
Yeah. And where in actuality, he was manipulating you, and from the position of your sister, it could have as well been experienced as you trying to get him back or something, like not seeing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, in my mind, it was, well, he loves me more than her anyway.
Yeah.
Telling her the same thing, so no, and there was, the whole year was filled with secrets and horrible.
Yeah, but I mean, so he was really playing everyone off of one another. But the thing I'm hearing that is that still till today, because of that sort of seed that he planted, it's come between you and your sister's ability just to be together and to love each other, understanding that you're both victims and not you weren't fighting against each other. You're both being manipulated against each other.
That's correct. So it's difficult, but like I said, I mean, she's my only sister and I love her very much. I really hope that someday that we can be like we were.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I think in that way, the beauty that I found in my life is that I can clean myself up, but I can't clean up other people. So I can just make sure my side of the street is clean, and therefore give you no reason not to come to me. But the more I try to come to you and you're not meeting me in the middle, the more I'm just making more problems. That's at least what I've found in my own journey.
It's her journey. Exactly. That's exactly right. Her journey is her journey, and I've done all I can. And
Beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah.
I do want to say that the whole rape that I went through, and it was statutory, it was at that time, was just part of the half of the problem. The next half of the problem was because of the way that I felt about myself, and being abandoned by first my father at age 5, and then my abuser, to my sister for the next 30 years. The men that I chose to have a relationship with were unavailable, verbally abusive, emotionally abusive. And I went through 3 decades of that. I've never had a healthy, loving sexual relationship.
Wow.
And I can hear myself saying this. The only common denominator is me. So
Yeah.
I must be the problem. It is my fault that I reached menopause without having a child with a loving husband. And so that is actually worse in getting over in the shame that I feel towards myself, the actual 3 years that the rape went on. So
I'd like to reframe that. Based on the description of all the men you had in those years, I think you're probably lucky not to have any reason to have any contact with them.
that is more true than you can understand. I mean, it really is. I mean, and getting away from them was definitely, but then I kept finding him again.
Oh yeah, exactly. Isn't that the
again.
beauty? The
So,
codependent things that, like the gift that keeps giving until you solve the problem inside of yourselves. Ourselves, that is.
Right. And that couldn't have happened without sobriety. There is no way that I could have healed without getting that addiction and that need. I still have the need to change the way I feel, I use sugar. But with alcohol, there was no way that could have happened.
I once dated a woman who, through the course of our relationship, I found out that she was raped by a man, an adult. The parents went to some, location on vacation, and the man would rape her, and the parents didn't know about it. And it was really hard because whenever we would make love, she would shut down emotionally to the point where there was no connection at all. It was like she had to go out of her body to sort of make it okay. And I would feel sick to my stomach because in a way I felt like I was reliving the rape with her, because now if I'm not with you, then I'm doing something to you. And it was such an uncomfortable feeling.
Sex is not the same with us.
Yeah.
It is something that's another part of my healing that I haven't even touched yet. I don't know what it's going to be like.
Yeah. And that was one of the times that I saw one can describe as much as they want in words of what the experience is like, but for me to have been on the other end and to feel the remoteness of a person who could be so alive was one of the hardest things for me to experience.
I feel her. I do.
Yeah, it was hard for her. It was hard
and
for
I've
me.
Never, the partner. It's I don't know. Maybe I'm gonna need to go back in therapy or something. I don't know how that's gonna be when I find my true love. I was just hoping that the healing would get all over that, would be done with it, but I don't know.
No.
Sex is definitely, because that's where the assault occurred, and the shame that I feel is there. I mean, that's very strange to describe, but it is. It's there. And so sex with me was always a tool or a resource. It was never where the connection is made between two people who love each other so much that they don't want to think or be with anybody else. It wasn't that. My mind was elsewhere.
Mm.
For bringing up something I hadn't thought about.
Yeah, well, it only came up in our discussion.
And because you went through it. I get that. So, it's a conversation that has to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I can't even fathom where it's, because I've noticed in my own pain, which isn't this pain, it's another pain, but I held it in my body. So I could find intellectual kind of realization, and then I could find some sadness and make peace with the pain. But there were also sides that went so deep that I was like, wow, this is like, I went into more this somatic work. Like, where am I not even clear that I'm feeling this pain? But so it's somewhere in my body, and usually in my throat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
There is dis-ease, disease, and it's in your body somewhere. Everyone who goes through a trauma kind has dis-ease in their body, and I feel one of the very first steps in climbing out of that dungeon of shame, that dungeon of your trauma, is talking about it.
Yeah.
Discovering your voice. So that's
and what
help survivors do.
What was the point when you said, I'm going to write a book about this now? Like, when did that happen? What was the thing that kicked that to a reality?
It started with reading my journals from day one. And this was, I had never kept a journal before my abuser came into my life. Reading it, the realization that this is what this girl is going through. This shows exactly what it's going through, and wanting it. It was a several year process before the realization that I really do want to share this with fellow survivors. And not only that, I want to create a community. Alcoholics have this wonderful community where they get together and talk about their disease. Why don't survivors have something like that? So I think the book, the reading through my journals was the seed. And I think I got a vision that my book was going to be written. Maybe some angel put it there. I don't know.
But there was a moment when you said, I'm going to do that.
Yes, there was. I'm going to write a book. I want to share this.
In an interesting, something came up for me as you spoke. By the way, I have so many thoughts come up that I tap my leg if you have a question you want to ask Pamela.
I normally tap him.
He usually taps me, but sometimes I actually want to ask to make sure he taps me.
I'm also quiet because I'm really feeling a lot as you're speaking that I have to catch up. It really, like, I had a pain in my shoulder, a pain in my heart, tightness in my throat.
I wanted to throw up once, actually. Yeah.
Good that you can recognize where in your body you feel it.
And when Andy was sharing his experience with a lover, I've had also several partners. And it became so clear to me that if I would be with someone who would leave their body, and after exploring it, normally was, oh, this happened in my life. But it's a complete, I'm not here anymore. So you can you have my body, but I'm not here. So that was also really.
And it could be that she's not even aware of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was also true.
I don't believe that I agree. Yeah. That the person was unaware.
But through the conversation, it forced them to look and, oh wow, this is actually not normal. I'm escaping. I'm not there.
And on our side, it's kind of weird because you're not a therapist. So there's an incapacity that comes in where you don't really know how to engage it.
And if you have never had therapy, you wouldn't know that that's,
Yeah.
talking about it is the only way out.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask before Andy jumps in, have you spoken or been around women who have been abused and have completely healed for it? Like, sex for them is like an amazing experience for connection. Like, have you had that reference?
So I have been around other survivors. I have a support group for survivors through my church, Unity of Houston, and I have been able to talk with them, but it's only a 6-week course.
Mm-hmm.
So I would never take on the responsibility or the role of therapist. That's not my job. So,
That wasn't what I was saying.
so has it gotten back to sex with other?
Yeah.
No. In my support group, we really just talk about what they are through, and it's a safe place to talk about their rape. It's really all that we do. We don't get into. So I've never talked to anyone about sex beyond healing. First of all, I don't know if we ever really do heal. As I said,
Yeah.
Do we hopefully will get to a point where a trusting, loving man will enter our lives, and at that point, that journey starts, and it's really between those two people.
Yeah.
And a therapist, and a real licensed therapist. I would never attempt to be that person.
Yeah.
I could share what I've been through, but like I said, I haven't been through it yet. So.
Thank you, Della. I want to do a little check-in. How safe do you feel in this moment being with us on the show?
I feel, with your demeanors, I feel safe. I feel like, and it's interesting that you say that, because I was just, for the longest time, I really didn't think that men could be compassionate. And I didn't even know it, but you two are obviously very compassionate and caring, and you don't have false motives. That's another thing that survivors have to get through, is that, are there men out there that are good, that are really good? I feel that you two are good. Oh, and I wouldn't be sitting here opening up if I didn't feel that way.
Thank you.
At the start of the show, that was one of the things I keyed in on when I said, how much easier can it be with a group of women discussing a topic where everybody can somewhat, even if they haven't been through it, at least have a little bit more empathy for it. And then you have two guys, this is your first debut, who knows how ignorant they're going to be,
I definitely feel safer around women.
Yeah, for sure. How could you not, Yeah. The alcoholism, you can't say for sure, but do you believe that you would have become an alcoholic if not having had that experience into your life? Do you think it would?
That? Absolutely. Because most addicts, and whether it's drugs or sex or gambling or eating, whatever it is, most addicts use that thing as a crutch to change the way that they feel. I wouldn't have needed to change the way that I felt about myself inside, the shame that I felt that was inside.
Yeah.
Unless I had gone through the trauma that I went through.
Yeah.
Absolutely feel like. And that's a good key for addicts who are out there, is that you're trying to cover up pain that you don't want to feel. That's step number one, awareness.
Yeah.
So, consider that.
I've often found that first step is so fucking hard, because it's like, if you're in denial, then the suffering has to go so far before you say, I'm going to change it. So it's either going to kill you, or it's going to put you at a place which is in such a desperation that it has to change.
We call that in AA the gift of desperation, and it is a gift.
It's a gift.
Bottom is a gift. If you come out alive on the other side,
Yeah.
it's a gift. It is a willingness to say, I want to change my life. I don't want to suffer anymore, and this is suffering.
Isn't it a shame that we can't do it from the positive? We have to go to the biggest negative point in our lives.
But the trauma is the pain. You have to meet the pain where it's.
Of course. Yeah, but it has to go to such a degree before we say, now we're going to change it. Wouldn't it be great if in the middle of it, we're like, things aren't good. Let's make them really great now. And we can't.
Oh my gosh, rainbows and unicorns. No, that is not life. That is not life.
Like if you imagine, and I can talk about my own addiction, since you were molested and abandoned, in a way it touched, I'm not worthy, I'm not loved. And upon my journey of going into a drug addiction for 10 years, I continued the abuse onto myself. And that for me was a reference of love, until I had to break that belief, of course.
I'll show her, I'll get her back.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's like, I will cause pain on myself because I am bad. I am worthy. So I will teach her a lesson by putting alcohol into my body. Yes. Yes. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. That shame thing really fucks with your mind. We've got Judith on that says, Della, how important do you find forgiveness in your life, especially towards yourself, forgiving yourself? How easy or hard is it?
I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that.
What do you mean? You can laugh at whatever you want to.
But forgiving myself, finding self-love is the most important thing that I can possibly do, Judith. That is the answer to my question. It is the most important thing that I can do. And going into another relationship, I can't go into another relationship if I don't love myself, because the amount that I love myself, like it's this big, that is the only amount of love that I can give to another person.
Yeah.
If I love myself this big, that's the amount of love that I can give to another person. So it is key. Having said that, it is the hardest thing that I have ever had to do. Finding myself worthy, finding myself deserving. And I still have that critic in my head that says, you don't deserve that much.
Yeah.
You deserve a little bit, but you don't deserve that much. So getting over that is extremely difficult. Extremely difficult. So, and this is the crazy thing. I can forgive my abuser before I can forgive myself.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that too. I know that he was emotionally, physically, and sexually abused. So he was a victim too. So finding compassion for him is the first step to forgiving him, right? But forgiving myself, I don't know why it's so hard, Judith. I don't know why it's so hard. But I go through it every single day. And it's realizing that I'm not forgiving myself. The tears, the pain that I feel, the shame that I still feel is still that, oh, well, I'm just, I don't love myself enough because I don't deserve it. How crazy is that? I feel
Yeah.
sometimes like I don't deserve God's love. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, that is absolute insane talking. I mean, of course, God loves everybody, whatever higher power, whatever you choose to call her, it, whatever. So
Yeah.
finding forgiveness in my life, it's, what I hope to do with this second book. And my working title right now is I See You. The steps that I have gone through, because I have made strides in my life since I have become sober, which was 7 years ago. And 7 years to me seems like a really long time, but really it's not. I probably have 20 more to go, and that's okay. But to share with people the way that I have gone through forgiving my abuser, forgiving my sister, and then, forgiving myself. It's key. That's the simple answer to your question, Judith. It is key.
We have a group for you, and it's fucking great. You can go there afterwards.
I've actually seen that on your page. Thought about posting a couple times. I don't know why I didn't.
There's an anonymous section if you don't want to be too clear.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have a blog on my Facebook page as well, my page. So
beautiful.
I go into that.
When I saw you doing this, like showing the measurement of love, when this doesn't need to be there anymore and it's just love, I kind of had, then she can just say no to things which are not serving her.
What gave you that idea? Who can say no to things that are not serving us? The donuts that I bought yesterday are not serving me. It's really, it's hard to say no. Give me an example, Bambo.
Then my reference is my life. I'm super disciplined, like scary disciplined.
To the point you might even call it an addiction.
So it goes the other way, which might be just as damaging.
Oh, that could be a whole topic for another show.
He's been trying to get me on a show to talk about myself.
So Andy would interview you. You might want to go to another format.
Exactly. He would get defensive, I believe, on that show. Yeah.
No, I would cry.
Oh, would you? Okay.
It's funny, after all this time, you I'll hear you say things. And I recognize it in myself, but it feels so far away since COVID, actually.
I don't know. Oh, you mean, Bambos and I have been doing this show now, of course, for a long time. So in some ways, who Bambos was even a year ago,
I would shut down, not talk about it.
So in some ways, sometimes I'll project or make fun of him as the persona that he was, who he isn't necessarily today. And I can tell he's over it because he doesn't defend anymore.
So it's a process. You see that, Bumbos. You felt it. You've gone through it. It's a process. We all are. We are all on our journeys.
Yeah.
And to me, the end of that journey is complete love of yourself.
Yeah.
And just to also say that I can always, today I posted on the And It's Fucking Great group.
Yeah.
That I'm greedy, I'm manipulative. And it was because I was judging someone yesterday who I had that experience with, and they were not owning it. And I didn't feel comfortable with it. And then I realized, if I'm not comfortable, it means I'm not celebrating it in myself. So that experience allowed me to touch that part of myself and just own it.
That's beautiful.
So we have a term for that. When you point at someone, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you.
No, it's just 2. I always point with 2 fingers.
Okay, well, for some people, that's how, one less
for normal
finger.
People, 3 fingers pointing back at you.
But it means, I used to hate that term. It's like, it's like somebody doing, But what it means is when you judge someone else, you're really judging yourself for that thing. And I've caught
you
myself
haven't
doing it,
loved.
and that's the key. Catch yourself doing it. It's like when you find yourself judging someone, oh, that girl's hair is blah, blah, blah. So, or whatever it is, what she's wearing or the way that she talks or, whatever it is, stop and ask yourself, do I do that? It's an opportunity.
Can we have like 10, 15 seconds of silence, please?
Of course.
Just to breathe a little bit.
I've got some more questions. Kind of two sets of question areas. The abuser, or what's the term we use? The predator? What's the term we use?
Predator, abuser, I use
So-
interchange.
When you became aware of this, I guess the thought in my mind is, like, he still lives, I'm assuming. Was there a moment and you're like, oh my God, I've got to report it to the police, or I need to like expose this because he may be doing it to other people now? Like, what came up for you in that way? Because there's a lot of even a weird, stupid pressure. Like he's abused me, but now I have to like put myself in a potentially bad position because who knows what he might even do, that kind of thing.
I brought this up with my therapist. Number one, I haven't seen him.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him since I have called him abuser, predator. My therapist said, as far as preventing other women from getting abused, that is not your job. When I think about now, I may feel differently in the future, but remember, it's only been 7 years.
Yeah.
When I think about facing him now, I get nauseous.
Oh, yeah.
And I, at this point in my life, say, I don't ever want to see, can I cuss on this show?
Of course.
I don't ever want to see his fucking face again.
Yeah.
Ever. 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, maybe that will change.
Yeah.
But I feel like, I just feel that he's not abusing girls anymore. I just feel it.
You know what was one of the most painful things for me to see in the U.S. during all their chaotic bullshit was when the Supreme Court Justice Roberts, or I don't know what their names are anymore, but whoever it was going through the last, and the woman came forward who was abused by one of the justices. Do you know that what was the name of the woman?
I see her and I can't remember her name either.
Okay, good. That's just, I thought you would know these things because assuming Americans know everything about these things. When I saw her go up and share her story, which was obviously not made up, like no one would put themselves in that situation. Obviously coming from a deep well of pain and huge, massive risk. And what I felt was society wasn't willing, able, capable of holding that space for her, because as soon as there's an agenda brought to anything, then people they lose compassion because they have an objective. And that was hard for me to see. It was painful to see as an outside observer.
When you say society, who is that? Because every single person felt what they felt on the inside. 7 billion people. Who is what society?
Well, society is society.
In that courtroom or whatever was
society. In my case, is a shared identity that says this person is good or this person is bad before they've even spoken. society is an identity that I am either, say, Republican or a Democrat. And based on that arbitrary thing that I've defined, I now look at this woman as just suspicious instead of just listening to this person, sharing their story and holding compassion for it. And what hurt for me to see is that if one cannot expect to be met with compassion after they've already been abused once, then what do you expect? Do you expect for people to come up and be abused again? And that's what's hard to see.
They actually have to get caught.
So yeah, exactly. Do they have to be at photos? And even then there would be some denial. Like how far does it have to go? And I understand then why it wouldn't even be comfortable if you were abused to even make charges.
I would say that I feel like over the majority of the people who saw that believed her. I totally believe that. Okay. Of the people who did not believe her, of the people who were suspicious, of the people who were thinking that she was in it for some other gain. All right. I believe that number is dwindling. I believe that number is getting smaller. I believe that the world is moving in a different direction. I truly believe that. And I also believe that the pandemic is aiding that.
Nice.
That we are becoming a more compassionate people. We are becoming more compassionate human beings. And that if that trial were held a year from now, or who knows when, that there may be a different outcome. Having said that, the whole judicial system, the whole has to change.
I guess I didn't want to go too far in that direction. I guess what I was kind of pointing at was in talking to you and asking you how comfortable you were bringing forward an accusation that it would be like there would be so much vulnerability in that I get sick thinking about it. That's what my feelings are, especially after having seen what I just described.
Well, I'm not talking to the nation yet.
Yeah.
I'm talking to two gentlemen, and who knows how far this is going to go, but then it wouldn't be live. So all you live people out there, thank you. I hope that women will find it easier to come forward. Mm-hmm. That is my hope. That is my belief.
And in the book, the first one, Almost Della, what was the message through the book that you conveyed in order to support women that had a similar situation to that of your own?
This first book is really my story. Mm-hmm. More than anything. In the last chapter, I do talk to my survivors mainly about find someone, anyone, a therapist, a sibling, an uncle or an aunt, someone who is willing to listen to you without judging you and without trying to fix you, and tell them your story. Tell someone, talk about it, talk about your story. That's really the message from book number 1. This is me leading by example. This is me saying, I am telling the world my story because this helps me and it helps other rape victims, survivors that are out there. So that's really find your voice, because for 3 decades, I let the shame fester in my body and in my soul and in my person. And like Paul Simon says, silence like a cancer grows. And so vomiting all of that up, as painful as it was and still is, it is the first step to climbing out of that dungeon of shame. That's really what book 1 is about. And this second book is going to be, okay, let's dive a little deeper. How is this happening? How is my journey continuing towards that end result of self-love?
Have you been finding that you say survivors, have you seen people that you maybe haven't even known come to you to share their stories because of the book?
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah.
I have, people have come to me and said that, thank you for coming out in such a way, and I find inspiration in you so that I might be able to tell my story someday.
Yeah.
And
What I find beautiful about being with you is that I've noticed on a lot of, especially people who have written, they have written such a far distance from the emotional impact that they can separate emotionally from it. And therefore it's almost like a bit intellectualized. And what I've seen with you is that you're writing, of course, the books, and even with us as we go through this, processing it together. And that's a very vulnerable, raw place to be. And there's a beauty in allowing yourself to be in that messiness, because to articulate it perfectly at the end isn't really meeting like the honest messiness of the journey, which it is.
I thought about Brene Brown. She's a fellow Houstonian. Yay, go Brene. Invulnerability is courage.
Yeah.
And people who find weakness in vulnerability are wrong. It is actually the opposite. And so seeing that in myself, thank you. Pat myself on the back.
Yeah.
And that's a gift. The willingness and the determination to get my story out there, to help survivors, but also maybe to prevent the rape from happening in the first place. Because again, most abusers were abused themselves.
Yeah.
Stop the cycle. Let's break the cycle, people. Let's break the cycle.
We had a guest on some weeks ago, Regina Marschneider, I believe that's her name. She has a puppet, Simon Says, and basically it's a puppet show where they have the police on call, and when the puppet when they're doing the puppet show about sexual abuse, the kids' reactions to the puppet tells them if they're being abused. And they have the police on site, social workers, and the whole bit. So it's
I get goosebumps. Yeah,
it's an intense.
Go team!
I know. Talk
Go
about
team.
like take a deep breath. That's how you start your day, knowing the police are coming with you to potentially, arrest someone.
And that's the other thing I want to start. The movement has already been started, but if you are a survivor and you tell another survivor your story, that person can then tell their story to another person who is too shy to do it or whatever. It's a movement. It's
That's the book. The book is called The Wounded Healer for that very reason, is that I've just seen as I get older, as we make peace with our own wounds, we can heal others by just sharing them, not trying to fix them and tell them how they should live, but just allowing our pain to be seen. Yes. And it's a gift. And I think it takes a lot of time and courage, but as people progress, I think they're getting sick of people telling them how to live. I think they prefer to say, be an example of whatever that you be an example of what you think I should be, but don't tell me what I should be. That's what I hope.
That's exactly it. And, look at Facebook. Everybody's trying to tell everybody what to do. You know what? Yeah. Shut up and listen. Just listen.
Yeah. Della, we've come up to our hour. We're over our hour now. We kind of went over just because it was really beautiful to talk through some of these things. So thank you for trusting us to be with us through this. Yeah. It's really
my
beautiful
pleasure.
to be with you.
My pleasure. You guys, I feel this has been healing for me too. And I can see it in both of you. You've healed as well.
Yeah. Well, we keep trying to, and somehow, there's a roadblock here or there. That's when I kick bambos usually.
That's life.
I'm Bambus's mentor, so we get a joke about it a bit. Some people who watch the show don't understand that, so it's not always easy. When I was sick, he had some hard time because he thought he might lose me last week I thought I might have COVID, so he had to mourn my death before my death, which was really beautiful. Yeah.
What a special relationship you two have.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Della.
Send you love.
Send you love.
Bye.
Bye.
I know you got somewhere to go, right?
Can we actually do something different for the ending?
Well, I'm conscious of your time, so I want to ask you.
No, but this is important. I think we can do 1 minute of silence for all the women.
Nice.
Who don't feel safe around men.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you tomorrow
On another episode of
A Wonderful Chaos. Bye-bye.